welcome back to another episode of Breaking and Adventuring, where we explore the world of the Adams County Sheriff's Office and beyond, and share the background stories and experiences of the men and women of the Sheriff's Office, the law enforcement community, and the greater public safety community. So today, I'm here with Chief Stephen Redfearn of the Boulder Police Department, who not only with duties of leading that department, but he also is a part of an organization called the Colorado Fallen Hero Foundation.
Right.
So I appreciate being here with us, Chief.
Absolutely.
Just looking into discuss the mission of the foundation and the people who carry on that mission and who are part of it. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me.
absolutely.
Yeah, you mentioned I'm a police chief. That's great and everything. But the probably the best thing I've ever done in my career is being a part of the Fallen Hero Foundation, kind of from the beginning. And really our main goal from day one has been to have a team that can respond anytime an officer is killed in the line of duty in Colorado. And that's, our mission is to make sure we're taking care of the survivors. And that's, the surviving family, of course, is the priority, but also the agency. And we haven't always done a great job of doing that just in general, because a lot of times it's well-intentioned people just don't have the skill set to know all the intricacies of planning a police memorial. And so when we set out, our main goal is to make sure that the small town officer is honored just like the big city officer. And we've done both. We've done the very little department now to big agencies, including Adams County. And it's been just an incredible thing. It's grown into some other areas we can talk about, but mostly our main goal is to get there to a department. That includes jumping on a plane to Southern Colorado in those first hours to kind of help, and then just really planning that memorial service so the agency can grieve and do what they have to do, sometimes even dealing with the criminal case. Yeah,
no, it's incredible. And we definitely go into it because I've seen on both ends now, unfortunately, but luckily enough too. But just a little bit about how'd you get there? So I don't know if you want to start a little bit about your law enforcement career and then what led you to this role.
Yeah, so I've been lucky. I've been one of those guys that's known from early on that I wanted to be a cop. I was a police explorer, police cadet, and then a 911 dispatcher. And then the moment I could apply to be a cop at 21, I did. And so I was lucky enough to get hired by the Aurora Police Department. Worked a lot with Adams County, and did everything there. And I left there in 2021 to go to Boulder as deputy chief and now chief. But in my time in Aurora, after the 2012 theater shooting that I was heavily involved in, we realized we needed to do a lot of things different when it came to peer support and taking care of our cops. And so I got really heavily involved into kind of the wellness peer support area. And I was a lieutenant, kind of informally overseeing a lot of the peer support things. And our former chief, Nick Metz, at the time had come from Seattle, and there's an organization in Washington State called Behind the Badge Foundation. And they've been around 20 plus years. They're incredible. They do exactly what we do and a lot more. And we'd had, back then we saw, we're talking about 2016, the 5 officers killed in Dallas. There's other, bigger events, but also then we're just seeing more ambush killings of law enforcement and we just the impact it had. And so we'd had a couple close calls in Aurora where officers had been shot that didn't die, thank God, but we're like, man, we gotta tighten this up. And so Nick, the Chief Metz at the time, said, why don't we do what Washington State does and see if the Sheriff's Association, the Chiefs Association of Colorado want to do more formal team. And so we met with, and Sheriff McIntosh at the time with Adams County was heavily involved in that. We met with the sheriffs and chiefs and said, hey, is this something you guys would want to do in Colorado? And they all hands down said, yeah. And we just kind of started just whoever would show up. And now we've moved into where we have a big team with a lot of defined roles. And we said from day one, we didn't want to get good at planning police funerals, but we've gotten really good at it. And it's just a really, all the chiefs and sheriffs say that I've talked to say number one, they don't know how they would have gotten through it without our team. But number two, those who haven't had a line of duty death, luckily have said they sleep better knowing if God forbid that day comes that we're around.
Yeah, it's an incredible lift, and just seeing the work behind the scenes planning, but also with all that, the dignity and care that is taken with every single step is incredible.
Yeah.
So very, very heartwarming. But you mentioned it. So when tragedy does strike and a law enforcement officer is lost in line of duty, so what role does the foundation step into play, and kind of, I guess, in the variety? How does that work with the home agency?
So one I'll preface it by saying one of the things we're doing now is trying to do a lot of training on the front end. And we've been going all over the state and actually now been asked to go around the country a few times to teach agencies on how to be better prepared for a line of duty death before it ever happens, talking about changing policy, procedure, and really just having the conversation similar to police suicide. I feel like we haven't talked about. We don't want to talk about it. It's depressing, but that's doing a disservice to everybody. And so it's on the front end now. We're trying to do a lot more of like, we have a guide book for chiefs on how to handle it and sheriffs, whatever. But when we get word of a line of duty death, we're a nonprofit and we've got a board. I'm fortunate enough to be the president of that board. And so we've got a team and we have 2 part-time employees as well, our executive director and a family sport coordinator. So we've got that core group of the foundation board of our nonprofit. And then we've got a extended group, I think that you've been part of, that's, 50, 60 people around the state that have said, hey, I'm interested in helping. And so when we get that initial call, we don't just show up. It's, we wait. Sometimes myself or Nick Metz, we'll shoot a text or phone call to the chief or sheriff just saying, hey, just a reminder, we're here if you need us. We've actually been, on the last few, we're getting called right in those first early moments, which wasn't our initial plan. We thought we'd maybe show up once the dust settled. And then we if they're not familiar with what we offer, we tell the chief or sheriff or designee, like, here's all the things we can bring to you. Most of the time that chief or sheriff says, please handle everything. However, if they were like, yeah, we're good with this, but we just need help with the public information side or the honor guard side, then we will cater that to whatever they need. But really it's to be there as quickly as possible to help with the family and all the things that happen. And then now we're fortunate enough due to donations and fundraising that we also provide immediate financial assistance to the families.
Oh, wow.
Whether we're asked to assist or not. And so that's been another thing that we're really proud to be able to do.
That's incredible. Yeah, and that's one thing, I'm glad you mentioned because, each agency and each jurisdiction kind of has their own, subculture and just the family and what they want. So, having that home agency be able to kind of dictate how much help, if from as very little to everything, is important just so they still have, can really honor that officer and that family and all the survivors in that way. So that's an incredible way to do it. And one thing I just thought of, you mentioned, how important is it, or how does it help having essentially a board and a group of peers who are coming in instead of just this unknown, but it's, you've unfortunately just in your career, you've been involved in many tragedies, as you mentioned, but having those peers step in who can help guide those chiefs and sheriffs. Yeah.
I mean, we're not unknown. We're not an unknown commodity that just shows up. We're all, especially in that moment, very protective of our people. But there's agencies, that have called us for several line of duty deaths now, and we're a familiar face. But even if we're not, we can show up and people have heard of us for the most part. We try to train new chiefs and sheriffs. So most of the time it's coming in and there's already a relationship, which is super important in this profession. And so, even when it's not, in fact, when the first time I met my former chief in Boulder, Maris Harold, I'd never met her before. I met her at the scene of King Soopers where Eric Talley was killed that day. And she didn't know me from Adam, but Chief Jokerst with CUPD and I go way back. And Doreen, Chief Jokerst, said, here, Maris, who was just dealing with a lot right then, you need to talk to this guy for a minute. And Maris said, well, okay, who are you and what can you do? And literally in a minute I said, here's who I am. Here's our organization. And if you'd entrust us with helping, we can have our team here to worry about planning Eric's memorial, because obviously they had to deal with the mass shooting and it's just a ton. And she said, and basically was like, Doreen, you vouch for this guy? And she said, yep. All right. And so sometimes it's like that. And because Chief Harold was new to Colorado, but a lot of the time we already know each other very well.
Yeah. What are some of the specific ways the foundation helps departments, families, communities? So you mentioned it a little bit. You mentioned like the PIO role, like King Soopers, for instance. Not only you've got all the victims and their families, but then you've got your downed officer and their families, but plus just the mass media interest and community interest that is there. So what are some of the specific ways that you guys step in?
Yeah, so we have the luxury in many aspects of a line of duty death where we come in, we help, and then at the end of it, most of the time we just kind of quietly leave after the memorial service is over. But we can also be the ones to have tough conversations because the home agency stays there, and whatever happens, they have to deal with. And so sometimes we can come in and be the bad guy and have tough conversations. We can step in and be a buffer with the media and really leave the home agency to have good relationships. And so what we can do, for example, with the public information officer group is almost every time we have 20 or 30 PIOs show up that have done this before. And we've gone to agencies that don't have a PIO. And so we can even, a couple in rural Colorado, we can bring in a group. Of course, we're paying for lodging and sometimes airfare even. We can bring that group and set up and say, we've got this. We've got your social media. We've got teletypes. We've got communication. And so with PIO and other areas, we really are just able to show up wherever the jurisdiction is and get to work. And so, for example, a 10 officer sheriff's department that we assisted with the line of duty death in Southern Colorado, the sheriff himself worked patrol. The sheriff didn't have time to sit there and worry about logistics and stuff. And there's a level of trust, and some control that's given up, but we're able to come in and worry about that stuff, even on a big department, to allow the agency members to grieve and focus on what we're seeing many times now. There's usually a lot of times now a criminal component to a line of duty death. So it takes a burden off for sure.
Yeah. I think honestly, that's one of the things that connected with me is coming in is we're basically circling up to protect that home agency and their families. And we'll take all the arrows. We'll be the bad guy for sure. And then also too, side note with that, just like the logistics and operations team, just all the moving parts,
right.
And just, man, the teamwork and camaraderie, but again, with that mission and dignity in mind, honoring that officer and the family is just incredible to witness and be a part of. How does the foundation balance emotional support, logistical help, and ceremonial duties during such sensitive moments?
It's a good question. And we've learned the hard way. And there's, lots of examples of, we're charging full speed ahead because we kind of have an idea of what this should be like. And the family's like, hold on, time out. That's not at all what we want. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're prepared hasn't happened in Colorado, but we're even prepared where the family may say, no, we don't even want a police funeral because they're upset about the circumstances that led to a line of duty death. Our big thing is trying to approach it in a way that comes off as, number one, we're not coming in to tell you what to do. We're coming in to share what we can do. What we ask for a lot of times is to partner with, a lot of times ends up being command members from that agency as we're planning this. And so it comes down to where, the night before the funeral, let's say if the funeral's on a Friday, Thursday night, we've got an 80-page instant action plan that we'll brief the chief or sheriff on. And I know sitting in that seat, giving them a lot of confidence that they can go to the funeral and not worry about, is the limo going to arrive on time, or do we have proper security at the venue? And then there also is that emotional piece. We assign the chief or sheriff an executive liaison, someone like myself, Chief Metz, Heidi Printup, that have been through this, that can help them because they've got to keep the agency together. But also we have a great team and connections with psych services, with Code 4 counseling, and others where sometimes I think they're there as much for our team as the agency. But we've been able to make sure, because we've done this a lot, that we also know what to watch for and be like, hey, here's some suggestions, chief or sheriff, on ways that you can help your agency right now. And, most of the time those suggestions are taken. Up to and including, though, we had one where we had to have some really tough conversations with the chief that was engaged in some things and saying things, and you're like, let's take a walk. It's a fine line, but you'll see any range of emotions and things that happen during that time, and they're all understandable. And we like to be able to come in and just kind of quietly and respectfully point things out and say, hey, here's something to think about.
Yeah. And even amongst the team itself, starting each morning of, all right, let's remember why we're here,
right.
but also being calculated, like take breaks. Let's, do that just so you can keep the mission in mind as well.
We say two things every morning, as you probably remember, is number one is assume good intent, which is probably something we all should remember day to day.
Yeah.
Because emotions get raw and it's a very, long days, and then stay in your lane. And that's very important in these situations. Is you have a task, don't be running all over the place, stay in your lane. And we have very firm ways we do things, and we find those things help when we remind those folks of why we're here and that everyone's here for the right reasons.
Yeah. So you referenced some of the relationships you have with other agencies across Colorado. What are some of the work or the pre-work behind the scenes to build those relationships? You mentioned just reaching out. Do you host trainings? Do you attend statewide or even nationwide conferences?
Yeah.
What does that look like for the foundation?
So kind of all of the above. When we started, we had no money. We were a nonprofit. We were going to all corners of the state to raise money. Now we're doing pretty well financially. We have 2 big fundraisers a year that kind of keep us comfortable, where we're not worried about if we have line of duty death or multiple or 2 in 1 week, and
Yeah.
are we going to be able to do it? So that is not a worry. So right now our focus and attention is really turned to how we can better prepare departments for it, like I mentioned earlier. So we've done several in 2025 alone, trainings in different regions of the state. One in Montrose, one in Durango. We've done some in the metro area, and we invite anybody that wants to come. And it's not just the police; it's the civilian support staff, everybody who might get involved. And we go through. We'll do tabletop exercises, all that kind of stuff. So that we find is very helpful. In fact, we had one where we were in Durango and did a training for Durango PD. Then 2 weeks later, an officer was killed in Cortez down the road.
Mm-hmm.
The guys who we'd done the training with in Durango were able to go right into Cortez PD, know how we work, jump in and help us immediately. And kind of what we find is every time we do deploy, members of that department then say, well, you guys were so amazing with us. I wanted to sign on to help the team win the next one and pay it forward. And so that's a big part of how we're doing it. But yeah, I've been asked to speak. I go every quarter and speak at a leadership school down at FLETC, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. Okay. And it's really teaching law enforcement executives from all over the country how to be better prepared and have those tough conversations. And we do a lot locally. So those have all been helpful just to because anytime a new group comes on the scene, people are like, all right, what are they doing? What are they here for? What's the catch? And so it's about, just saying, look, there's no catch. We're a nonprofit. We're just here to help. Tends to kind of take the temperature down, because when this happens, the chief or sheriff's phone, everybody's reaching out. I mean, hundreds of people reaching out. It's like who's who and what's what. And that's why we try to make sure they all have our numbers to call us when the time's right.
Yeah. And that you mentioned it too, you can almost be like that filter for them just to take some of that pressure off.
We've had some tough conversations to include a level elected officials of like, these are the family's wishes. Sorry. And again, then the agency kind of is able to maintain what they need to maintain.
It's important. So what kind of response do you see from like the broader community when a line of duty death occurs, and how does the foundation help channel that support?
It's a great question. And I will challenge anybody that says the majority of the community doesn't support the police. I think everywhere I've worked, the majority of people are very supportive of law enforcement. Unfortunately, when things happen, we all get painted with the broad brush. But I think when we lose an officer, we truly do see how much people care. Now that you might get a more positive media that week, and then it kind of goes back to the regular cycle the next week. But I think when the community truly comes out and shows up, and it depends on the community, the financial ability to support or just be there physically. We set up donations. We take donations through our foundation and funnel them back to the department. And we've received large donations, but we've had a young kid walk up to the memorial and give us $5. All of those are meaningful. And we try to make sure that all of that, all the cards and all that get to the family. It's also about awareness. It's telling the story of the fallen officer. And again, a small department that doesn't have a big team that does a lot of the media things, we're able to come in and help, bring awareness to that and always remind the community, like, all right, when you might want to not be supportive of law enforcement, even maybe when it might not be, but is deserved. Yeah. Remember the sacrifice that any officer in the department could have been the one that gave their life, and they'll do it again today if we had to. And so part of it is messaging, and part of it is not trying to take advantage of an opportunity, but really just highlighting the sacrifice. And part of that is by putting the service together the way we do, and ensuring the family has the videos, pictures, all the things that is publicly streamed as well. So it's not a quiet conversation in the dark. Typically, we're going to make sure that this is everywhere, and everybody gets to know the person behind the uniform that gave their life.
Yeah, no, and just from what I personally experienced with when we lost Heath, it was, there was people coming, food everywhere, support, just his car covered with any and everything. People would ask, in passing, would just ask questions about him, or they already knew about, or maybe they were friends of him, but just. And seeing the foundation just respectfully, like, okay, we're going to take things, set them aside for the family, and even set up, like you mentioned, some of the donation sites, and so that we don't have, imposter ones pop up. I mean, the foundation does so much to make sure the family and the agency truly gets what the community is there and wishing to support. But seeing that outpouring of love, to where in this career, it's so easy just to, you're dealing with the the negative side so
Right.
much to lose sight of that. So unfortunately, during tragedies like that, that is the one silver lining for me, was just like, wow, this love is out there for our agency
Right.
and our personnel.
Yeah, we hear from the small number of, it doesn't matter the community, we hear from a small number of people the majority of the time that likely don't represent the broader population. And so I would assert that it shouldn't take an officer losing their life to get people to step up and speak up in support of the police. But I think we're seeing it more and more. But it's also to remind our officers when, this job is tough and it's easy to get frustrated with politics and all the things, but it's also a good reminder of, hey, remember when the officer was killed, when the deputy was killed, how much support was there, and you can't argue with it. It's and it's genuine.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I remember doing, because similarly we were doing the parallel criminal investigation at the same time, and so I was out with a group of detectives, but we're doing canvassing, and people are just coming up in tears, and I'm trying to do my job, and I'm tearing up, and it's just such that mutual outpouring was very good to have that community support from our service area.
Right.
Incredible. And just knowing that impact is out there. So for all the law enforcement, all the guys and girls out there, there's so much love for you, whether you see it day in and day
Absolutely.
out. So in general, this work requires a deep compassion and resilience. What motivates you personally to be part of this mission?
It's a good question. And at the beginning, I wasn't really sure, other than I think I was the highest ranking guy in the room when Nick
like,
Metz
oh, no.
proposed the idea. But part of it for me is I think I know for sure that in 2012, when we responded to the Aurora Theater shooting, at the time, it's the largest mass shooting in U.S. history. I was a young sergeant, hair on fire. Peer support, wellness, I'm good. That really smacked a lot of us upside the head and said, man, we've got to do something different in light of this to take care of one another. And that's really where I really got heavily involved in peer support and wellness, and kind of revamping the program at Aurora at the time. And then, losing officers that I worked with in Aurora, seeing things like, just very high profile incidents around the country where officers were just killed for doing their jobs. It really, to me, motivates, I think, all of us to want to do something. And this gives us the ability on our local in Colorado to do something. And we're never going to stop law enforcement officers from being killed. It's been that way since the very first police officer. But if we know that there's things we can do better on the back end, to me, that's been one of the most rewarding things. And it's tough. And our team, when you're standing in a family's living room that you've never met, and they just lost, their loved one, it's incredible. And we form relationships for years to come with the survivors, the surviving family members of departments. And so that's the motivation for me. And I don't get as intimately involved now because of my new role, but knowing, that we've set up this team that will be probably going on long after I'm retired from this job, that's really special. And then seeing, I mentioned it, but seeing, we go to an agency and the impact is so heavy on them that they want to jump on, even though it's going to be tough to help the next department. That's what's really rewarding about it. And we all know this in law enforcement is it could have been any one of us. And, we've all had close calls. We have calls we don't even know how close we're.
Yeah,
so that's part of it is like by the grace of God, I'm not the one that was in that situation. I think we owe it to our brothers and sisters to make sure they're taken care of.
Absolutely. No, and I mean, again, just firsthand on both sides, but and we mentioned even the community support, but I remember walking into our large meeting room where you guys were, but we had people setting up just chair massages to just donate time from their business, obviously, the food, but just any and everything they could provide. Like, what can we do to help?
Yeah.
Just to give you guys 5 minutes to go. Cause for us, I remember I went home, shower, say hi to my family, and then back at it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, just people thinking of any and everything to help and support was incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are, or I guess, are there particular moments or stories that have stayed with you? So you mentioned these connections with families, like times when you saw the foundation's work truly make a difference, like just, anything from small or. So
one thing that I hadn't thought about in the beginning that has happened, and there's other organizations like Concerns of Police Survivors that help survivors. But one of the things that I've seen, because we do a lot behind the scenes to nice things for families, Rockies games, arranging for Santa to deliver gifts and patrol cars at Christmas. And
cool.
tea at the Brown Palace for family, for mothers and grandmas and dads. I mean, everybody.
Oh,
But seeing the surviving family members connect has been really amazing, because there's very few people that truly understand
yeah.
what that's like. And seeing two moms of fallen officers connect, that's been really impactful for me. But also for me on a personal level, having a chief or sheriff, come up to me at the end and say, I don't know how I would have gotten my department through this without your team. That's a pretty significant statement. And that's, we don't do this for credit or glory or anything like that. It's not, in fact, it's tough work, but knowing that, it could, again, as a chief now, especially knowing the importance of having that support has been huge. And that's been really, really important. But just kind of knowing, and again, hearing chiefs and everybody say, I sleep better knowing that you guys are there if that bad day happens, because it always got done.
Yeah.
But it was probably 2 or 3 people standing in an ER at 4 a.m. going, what the heck just happened and what are we going to do now? Now, at least we know there's that resource.
Yeah.
So anything we can do to lighten that load is to me absolutely rewarding.
Yeah. And you mentioned it. I mean, yeah, we're not there to get credit or get highlighted, but in such a dark, I mean, especially if you're doing multiple of these, it's so just heavy to deal with.
Yep.
Having those little slivers where you're like, really fills you with that purpose is important.
And we have a great team, and we've all become incredibly close, and we have, it's an incredible group of people. And this job, especially since 2020, has been really, really tough. But every time we come together to do a funeral for an officer in Colorado, it's exhausting. But at the end of the week, for me, it actually reinvigorates me to say, yeah, I'm still all in on this profession, even when those days where I'm like questioning why I'm still doing it. I remember those times of like, no, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I completely agree. And thinking of just the overall, so the big event, the funeral itself, why are memorials and various moments of remembrance so vital, not just for law enforcement, but even the public in that community?
Yeah, I think so. Number one, you look at it, and statistically, I think this is valid. I don't know how to disprove it, but less than 1% of people in this country have what it takes: training, knowledge, skills, ability, background to be cops. And
well, this will be on the internet now, so it's got to be true.
It's
on
true,
the internet,
sure.
so it's true.
Well, and so number one, it's a very small number of people that are capable and willing to go out every single day, kiss their family goodbye, and you don't think, most of us don't think about it on the regular. You just go do your job afterwards. Sometimes you're like, man, that was scary. But literally lay their life down, die in the line of duty to protect someone who may not even like them or appreciate what they do. That is significant. I mean, military, different levels, same for me, incredibly significant. And, especially when it's a felonious homicide, we've got to do it. The community has to be reminded that, hey, did you sleep well last night? That's because there's people out there willing to do a job that most folks are not, and most folks don't want to do. But it's also for the family. It's really, everything we do is for the family and the department, but for the family especially, they give up a lot as family members of law enforcement as well. And, God forbid, they've all thought about that. What if that knock at the door comes at 2 a.m? And I think that's understated of the impact that being a police officer's family member is as well. And so I think it's for all the groups, but I love that, you brought up, it's for the public, and it's a reminder for the public of what any day, any jurisdiction, anywhere in this country, men and women are willing to do.
Yeah, no. And I to me, that element is important too, because for that reminder, but and a reminder for us too, because even like with some of the processions, just having every road and sidewalk full of people.
Yeah.
There was a few where I saw entire companies would empty their building and they would all line up together to honor that officer and their family as they went by.
Yeah.
It's
the way it should be.
Absolutely. And it's that collective honoring
Right.
of their service, and that gratitude is important. I'm glad you mentioned that. And thinking of a lot of these things, what are some of the biggest challenges the foundation faces as it continues this mission?
We have a lot more benefits and positives than we do challenges. Part of it is just, it may sound strange, but thankfully we go through periods of time where we don't lose an officer in a long period of time. And that's the best.
Absolutely.
We would love to have no work. And so sometimes people forget about us, and, we only run through donations. Yeah. We want the chiefs and sheriffs to remember who we are. So we never want it to be where we're on the news every 2 weeks, because we've had that, where we've had back-to-back line of duty. So part of it is just remaining relevant because as a nonprofit, we don't have a regular cadence of activities like most nonprofits. We really come together when something bad happens. So part of it is also finding other ways we can support. When it's not a time of crisis as well as is a challenge. I think we're doing all right. We've got, on our website, you can see there's tons of different things we're doing, and our big gala every year, golf tournament, those help us immensely financially. So it's just maintaining that momentum when we're not having work, which we never want work.
Awesome. And speaking about that, is there anything upcoming, whether it's kind of new initiatives, things you're thinking of to keep these relationships going, or partnerships or programs that you're excited about?
We're really focused now on continuing the trainings. We'd love to get to where we do a several-day training every day, once a year. When you bring agencies in, we're always figuring out scholarships, things like that we can do that are better. Our golf tournaments in May, it's at a great course, and then our galas every October. And those are all, on our website, on our Facebook. And so really, I just encourage people to watch our social media, watch our website to see what may be coming up. Businesses to sponsor, things like that.
Absolutely. What's the web address? So people
can it's cofallenhero.org. Awesome. And we're also on Facebook, Colorado Fallen Hero Foundation.
Perfect. And we'll put links to all that
cool.
In the information.
Great.
Awesome. And that's a great way for people to get involved. Now you mentioned, with the donations, how else can the public get involved, whether through volunteering, donations, obviously spreading awareness? What's some of the best ways?
Yeah. Just briefly, the public can help us out. If you own a company, if you own a bus company, reach out to us, say, hey, if something happens, we'd be happy to help. We're not asking for, free stuff, but it's nice in the moment, and we've gotten better about it to have those connections one-on-one.
Awesome.
Or, hey, I've got a bunch of airline miles I'm not going to use. Can we donate them to the foundation for you to help fly family members in? A lot of it is goods and services that we need when something happens, but we've also got plenty of opportunities for volunteers to plan our gala, to be a part of that. Just people, maybe retired law enforcement that wants to continue. There's a little bit of a vetting process to make sure, you're who you are, but happily we'll add you to a list that you can help when things happen.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
No, and continuing to just branch that divide and just having that partnership back and forth is amazing. If you could leave our listeners and viewers with one message about what Colorado Fallen Hero Foundation stands for, what would that be?
We exist to make sure that, I kind of mentioned earlier, that ultimately the family. I mean, it's all about the family, and the agency. And a lot of times the agency was getting left out of this. And it was the agency planning their own person's funeral, agency members sitting on the side of the road doing traffic control during the funeral. We really want to come in and take the load off that department, but also then in the immediate and long term, make sure we're connecting with the family and taking care of the family financially as needed, and then connecting them with other organizations. We are all in for it. The cool thing with our organization is it's not related to just one jurisdiction. It's statewide, and we have officers like state troopers that are not just one jurisdiction. And so when people want to support and donate, it goes all over the state. There's plenty of local organizations that are absolutely viable and good to donate. But if people are looking for, a way to support all of law enforcement in Colorado, we are that agency, and we just will make sure that no officer sacrifice does not go in vain and is honored, just no matter where in the state they are.
Awesome. I couldn't agree with you more. It's incredible. And being a part of an agency who we had that opportunity, any and everybody who wanted to be there for these memorials and services and just grieve as an agency family, we were able to do that because of the work that you guys did.
It's great.
From us personally, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And then on the back end, and as you mentioned, paying it forward, it was an honor to be a part of that, to give that to the other agencies. Unfortunately,
we appreciate that as well.
Well, thank you, Chief, for making time to be here. And please go to the website, go to the social media, participate, check it out. It's an amazing, amazing cause. And for ongoing episodes, you can follow us on our YouTube page, our social media, and you can reach out to us at communityconnections@adamssheriffco.gov for any episode ideas, questions, comments you'd like to make. Until next time, see you later.